program by, for, and about women today with Sandra Elkin.
Good evening and welcome to Woman. My guest this evening is the internationally famous film actress Jeanne Moreau. For the first time in her career, Jeanne Moreau has written and directed a film. It's called Lumiere, and it's about women and their relationships. Welcome again.
Hello.
Last week, we sort of stopped at the point where you were beginning to talk about men.
Yes.
Now, you've had lots of relationships with men in your life. Some of them have hit the front pages. Some of them we know a little bit about. Do you know anything about men? Have you come to any conclusions?
I like men. I'm not talking only about the one I've known personally. And you know as well as I do that when one loves, one can hate. And what I find terrible, it's the way we are all brought up. I mean, women are brought up in a certain way, men are brought up in another way. And for the rest of our lives, we have to deal with that. And men are brought up so they can only relate to one thing, it's power. And power is a terrifying thing. First of all, power is something you cannot share with anybody. Because if you share, then you're not powerful anymore. So when you have the power, it means that you're one. And since you're alone, means that the rest of the people around you are more numerous. I mean, they are the majority. So when you have power, you start to be frightened. And you lose confidence. You're afraid of threats.
Become paranoid.
Treachery, blackmail. And in fact, that is the main color of relationship between a man and a woman. And though out of any passionate relationship, it is clear that we can enjoy our company. I mean, company of a man for a woman, of a woman for a man, though we know that we have to share this life and this world. As soon as there is a personal relationship, then clicks, it goes. And the big idea is who's going to win. I mean, how can you live that way?
Unhappily, I guess, is how you live.
Yes. And when I say I like men, means that though I'm not as easily I'm searching for a precise word. Although I like them, I cannot put myself into their place as easily as I do for women. But, for example, there is something that is always told. It's a convention between women. There only exists deep competition. But if you think about it and if you watch around you, the real world where competition exists, it's the world of men. And it starts when they're babes.
Right, they really are programmed.
They are. I mean, a boy is not allowed to cry. Only little girls cry. At school, you have to be the strongest. You have to be good at sports.
And successful.
And you have to be successful. You have to be the winner. You have to be the conqueror. You have to seek for adventures and then win. Always win, win, win. I mean, that's a terrible pressure.
But it seems that some men are not terribly anxious to have some of those pressures relieved. Do you find that to be true?
Well, they're not. They're not, because as they have lived with that, as though it was themselves, if they accepted it, the idea, and especially the feeling that it's an incredible burden, they would feel that they would fall apart, that nothing would be left of themselves. See what I mean?
Yes. Are you willing to compromise in a relationship with a man as
I
you were?
I never compromised.
You never? Never ever, or never now?
Never now. I have. I have. Well, we all know that. We've been through that. Oh, what did I say? God.
Nothing, it's all right.
No, but I mean, that's when I was a young girl. I would say something and they say, oh no, you shouldn't say that, because it might hurt the relationship that you're having with the boy you love. Or, oh God, I'd love to be alone and walk and see some friends, and then would worry and say, yes, but if I go away, what will he think? And maybe he thinks I love him less, or maybe he'll be relieved that I'm away. You know, all those crazy thoughts you go through, and emotions, not only thoughts, but emotions. And compromise, I discovered, but quite soon, that first of all, that meant that I had no self-respect for myself, and that it meant too that I didn't respect my partner. I was not treating us as equal human beings. See what I mean?
Yes. One of the things you said about Lumiere, when you were talking about Lumiere in an interview that I read, is that women talk about sex differently than men do. And maybe, I think I know what you mean by that, and maybe that illustrates what you're saying about men and their power. But elaborate a little bit on that, about how you think women speak of sex differently than men do.
Well, we don't make jokes. You know, for example, those jokes that you hear very often, stories that men do tell, where the woman's sex is treated just like, I've never heard any of the equivalent of these jokes between women. Because those jokes, I always resented them because I don't find them funny. They're humiliating, they're despising, as though they were despising the human body that is the body of a woman.
Do you know women who keep score of their sexual conquests? Is that a difference also, do you think?
Yes, I think it is an enormous difference. I think once I met a woman who tried to speak that way, but she was so unhappy about it, and I could feel that she did it out of rage and just to pretend that she was strong and she couldn't care less, but she was not natural. But a natural relationship between women, I've never heard anything of that sort. And for example, with my closest friend, we've known each other for 19 years. I know very little about her sexual life, though I feel and I sense, and she knows without me telling her, but it doesn't need to be outspoken. See what I mean?
Well, I'm really curious to know how you can have an intimate friendship with someone and a relationship with someone and not discuss
But I mean,
those
we
things.
don't, each time we meet, we don't come up and saying, well, I've done this and I've done that, what have you done?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like some men would do.
Right.
But at some point, discussing about lots of things, we would discuss the problem of sexuality in general. That's what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Can you go back to playing, could you play now some of the early roles that you played, or would it turn you off in terms of the way the woman was presented?
Oh, yes.
You could go back, or you couldn't?
No, I couldn't. I couldn't. But what is good about good directors, for example, it's that the part in Jules and Jim, or Eva with Joe Losey, or...
Was Eva maybe your strongest role, do you think?
Eva?
Yeah.
I think it was a marvelous part.
Yeah.
And I think it was so close to what I felt and thought about that violent anger, violent reaction that woman had, though she was forced to earn her life by giving away a body and her sex.
Did you transform her into the accurate portrayal that you gave, or was the director really all that sensitive to what she was?
He had a hint about it, but he let me go as deep as I could. He was willing. He didn't know how far it would go, but he was willing. And maybe that's why the film was not very successful.
Well, it was in terms of your own performance. It was enormously successful.
But I mean,
Yeah.
concerning the audience.
Right. Do you think people were not ready then to see that kind of truth, maybe?
Yeah.
What about Jules and Jim? Now, what did you get from the director for her?
You know, when you're close to a director, you get things from him, but he gets things from you. I mean, it's an exchange. I couldn't say how much there is of François and how much there is of me. I mean, he's the owner. He's the man who did the film. And concerning Catherine, yes, we exchanged.
Do you think Truffaut, as a director, is sensitive to women?
At that time, yes.
And not anymore, are you saying?
We see his next film.
Oh.
I say that because of the title of his next film. The Man Who Loved Women. Why who loved women? That's why I'm curious.
You've worked a lot with Orson Welles also.
Yeah.
And it seems you have a special fondness for him.
Yeah.
And you even said at one point that he's fragile.
He is.
And I think that may have surprised a lot of people because they see Orson Welles as a very strong personality.
Yeah.
How is he fragile? His psyche is fragile?
Well, not his psyche, but he's a very sensitive person. He can be very easily hurt. He's not a macho. He hasn't built around, though he's big. That doesn't mean that he carries an armor.
Mm-hmm.
And he's so open to the others that I know that he's been hurt very often. And I don't know if you feel like that, but sometimes I can see the baby or the child in some persons.
Well, see, I've only ever really seen him in over any long period of time on television.
Mm.
And I'm not sure that's a good place to be able to see
Maybe.
that in someone, but I'm not sure. But I haven't really, you know, that surprised me when I read
But
your
maybe
exhibit.
it's a personal feeling I have for him.
You've never worked with Bergman.
Never.
Why?
We know each other. I wrote letters to him. He wrote letters to me. We had planned to make a film together, and that was to take place in France. It was about 12 years ago, and then finally he said he didn't feel like leaving his country. Well, now he has changed. Well, it's just like that. I'm
sure you will at some point.
I hope
I
I
mean, it's
will,
almost-
yes.
What about American directors? Do you, you haven't worked with all that many, what, maybe 4 or 5?
Yeah.
Do you find it easy to work for them? Do you find it easy to play in English? Do you find them as sensitive to women or less sensitive?
Well, I don't find it difficult to act in English as long as people don't mind my slight accent. And I haven't been working with an American director since about 5 years now. And the attitude, the humor of people change very quickly, you know as well as I do. But I never had to complain. I mean, they really were respectful, they liked me, and I'm very professional, and once I've accepted to do something, I do it very profoundly.
Even Lee Marvin?
I liked him.
You did?
I liked him, and I think he liked me. And but how could I work with American directors? I mean, there are no female parts in American films.
You've noticed that too.
Well, it's like that all over the world.
Is that true? I thought it was slightly worse here than it is in
It's
some
a
other
little
places.
worse.
Yeah.
A little. But the country is bigger, you see.
I see, so it has to be worse. All right, I'll accept that for the moment. Do you think it's going to get better? I mean, there are a lot of people who are very angry about that. Jane Fonda's made statements, Ellen Burstyn has made statements, and it seems not to be giving anywhere. I mean, they're still turning out buddy movies.
I have a feeling that it's really going to change. And it's really going to change if women more and more make films.
And they make money. Isn't that probably?
Yes.
And if your film makes money, it will probably make a difference.
Yes, I wish so much that my film could make money and that some other women's film would make money, because then the doors would be open, you see. Producers and distributors would give money to other women directors.
Are you going to continue to do films about women, or are you just going to do this one and see what you feel like doing next?
No, I'm writing another script. I'm working on another script, but I'm not working alone this time. I'm working with a French woman, a writer. She's called Henriette Gélinek. At the same time, she's a mathematician. She teaches mathematics. She stayed for a few years in Boston as a professor. She was at the Brooklyn University.
And it is about women?
It is about the crisis in a married couple after 15 years of marriage, and they have a daughter of 14 years. And it's during the summer 1939, just before the war is declared. And the main characters are that young adolescent girl, the mother, and the mother of the father, the grandmother. And it's all the story of at the same time, the village with this great, huge, enormous black cloud growing over and covering up Europe and ending in that war that made 57 million of dead.
Do you think you'll have trouble getting money for that?
I should not allow myself to think that I'll get the money.
You worked with a woman director once,
Yes.
Marguerite Duras.
Marguerite, yes.
And the film was Natalie Granger.
That's it.
What was that like? I mean, was that very different from your experiences with the male directors?
I'm going to tell you one thing. Talented male directors, they're not males. There's no bullying, there's no screaming, there's no... You know that there is something masculine in women and there is something feminine in men. Real artists do have a femininity to which it's easy to relate. So I would tell a lie if I'd say working with Marguerite made all the difference. No, it's not true. It was fascinating, it was a marvelous experience, and she had her own way, there was a different ambiance. And to see that small little woman going around, and all the men were, she was always her head like that. I thought at the end of the day she must be tired and exhausted, you know, she's so small and tiny. But I cannot say that there's a big difference when you're directed by a good woman director, or when you compare when you're directed by a good man director, somebody you like and you rely on and you admire.
Well, in a way you reminded me of something we spoke about very briefly in the car when we were driving here, and we established the fact that we were both interested in the question of androgyny. And what I find interesting, what I've observed recently, is that many people who could be qualified as sort of superstars, and I'm talking about Mick Jagger, the late Janis Joplin, and various people like that, they have a very androgynous quality about them and tremendous sex appeal.
Yeah. Well, look, even many, many, many years ago, Gérard Philippe, when he started, had that quality. He had that sex appeal. And you can imagine, I mean, everybody was raving about him, not only girls, but men.
Do you think, I guess from what you said about the directors, that you feel that it's important for people to allow those qualities to come out? Masculine qualities in women and feminine qualities in men makes for a better human being. Would you go along with that?
Yes, I would, yes.
Maybe you'll do a film sometime.
About?
On that subject.
I'd prefer to write about it. It would be easier.
Rather than act?
No,
rather than direct?
Yes, rather than make a film about it, about that that subject.
Do you feel, you know, I've read and heard people talk about this a lot, that women have problems with success. And it's something that some of the women who come here to do this program talk about sometimes. And I've had many conversations with various women about it. Have you had problems with your success? Or just being able to stand up and say, I'm successful, I am famous, I am a star, whatever that means to you.
I had problems with it at the beginning, just after The Lovers.
That was when you really began to be recognized, right, after The Lovers?
Yes, because it was a fame that became worldwide, and I was sad because of the misunderstanding. I mean, that film was a film about love, and suddenly the success was only related to the sexual relationship, that famous eighth reel. And it was a very strange mixture. I didn't live with my husband anymore, and I thought, well, I have success, but in my private life, I'm a failure. And I felt a sort of guilt. So we come back to the other conversation we had. And I fought that guilt complex, but it takes time.
Did you fight it by yourself, or did you, get
I fought it by myself. And then later on, when I had problems in my relationship with my son, I went to an analyst, because I thought that if he had problems meant that there was something that was not very clear with me. It helped me a lot, it didn't help my son, so it means that, you see, you can only work things out for yourself. And besides that meeting with the analyst, my husband has been marvelous about it, because he told me, and he repeated it, that I should not be guilty of anything. And he said, well, you need to hear that sometimes, especially when it's the man you've heard the most.
Yes, you do need to hear that. And probably repeatedly.
Yeah. So now he doesn't need to tell me that anymore. I'm not guilty.
I'm delighted to hear you're not guilty anymore. What about your parents? You lived with your father, didn't you?
Yes.
And he thought the world had gone crazy when you received the Legion of Honor.
Oh, yes.
He thought you were a failure, really.
Well, no, he thought that the world really was crazy, and he thought he was already sick, and he thought, well, why should I live in such a crazy world? And then he died. He died a few months after that. And it's very funny because my parents divorced. I was, well, they got separated. I was about 19 years old. And I always promised my mother that the first money I would get would be for her to go away, because her marriage was real hell. And my mother was the closest person to me. And it's irony. I stayed in France. My father was living in France, and then he got very sick. And though I had no relationship at all with him.
Oh, so the fact that you stayed with him doesn't mean that you were particularly close to him?
No. When he knew that I was pregnant, he threw me out of the house, and I lived in a hotel. And I didn't meet again with him until my son was 3 years old, and that because I heard that he was very sick and he was in a hospital. So I went and took care of him. And
Jeanne,
then, yeah.
We are out of time again.
Okay.
I thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very much. Thank you for watching, and good night.
This program was produced by WNED-TV, which is solely responsible for its content. Major funding was provided by public television stations. Additional support was provided by unrestricted general program grants from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and the Ford Foundation.